Hello everyone, I'm Santiago, and today I'm gonna be testing Warhammer Vermintide 2 on the GeForce GTX 1050 Ti. For performance monitoring, this time I won't be using cam due to Easy Anti-Cheat, which is the anti-cheat software this game uses, so in the meantime I'll be using MSI Afterburner. So Warhammer Vermintide 2, I'll be doing 1080p, 900p, 720p and 1440p. To skip none of those sections of the video, check the description below. So first of all, I'll show you the G4560 on 1080p, targeting 30 frames per second. And then after that, I show you the same CPU, but at 720p, trying to get 60 frames per second. So you get an idea on how it runs targeting 30 and targeting 60, how the CPU handles all these situations. After that, I show you the Ryzen 3 1200 overclocked to 3.9 GHz. And with that one, you won't see much of a difference when I'm targeting 30 frames per second. But when I'm targeting 60 at 720p, for example, you'll see less drops in the GPU usage. It won't be a huge difference, but it feels more stable overall, especially when there are too many enemies on screen and you're trying to get a more consistent frame rate. Still not a night and day difference, but you can notice it by looking at the numbers. Still, with both of these CPUs, it's a fantastic experience. And with the Ryzen 3, I'll show you 1080p targeting 30, then I lower the settings trying to hit 60s, which is quite difficult. I'll talk more about that later in the video. Then on 900p and 720p, I'll try the exact same thing. I'll show you the highest settings possible, trying to stay over 30 frames per second. Then I lower the settings, trying to maintain 60. Which again is quite difficult even at 720p. And finally at 1440p it was impossible to get constant 60 frames per second, so I just show you a configuration to be pretty much at 30 frames per second when there's a lot going on. But now I'm going to talk to you about the options menu and why it was so difficult to get 60 frames per second. So this options menu is very extensive. I'm always surprised by this developer. From the previous game they had an amazing options menu as well. What you want to lower first is anything related to lighting. For example, local light shadow quality, sun shadows, max shadow casting lights, ambient light quality, and then we also have volumetric fog, particles, transparency resolution, scatter density. Those can make a big difference in performance, especially if you lower them in groups. Then another one that is very intensive is SSAO and screen space reflections. Screen space reflections, if you turn it off, is a very noticeable boost in performance, and SSAO is as well. And there's also a sharpening option, which I recommend to use if you select TAA, so it makes TAA look less blurry, but I don't recommend using sharpening if you are below your native resolution. For example, if you have a 1080p monitor and you're playing, for example, at 720p, maybe sharpening is not a good option. It might look a little weird. On 900p I can tolerate it, but below 900p sharpening for me is a no-go on this game. And another one that I recommend turning off is physics debris. Can make quite a difference when there's a lot of enemies on screen. But if you want to take this options menu a little easier and you're not too patient to be playing with settings, maybe just limit yourself to presets and lower the settings that I told you. Since usually lowering things in groups in this game, this one makes the best difference. That's my quick look into the options menu. So yeah, I recommend you play with it. But it's very difficult to get 60 frames per second constant. On the CPU side, it's not that bad. I was expecting much worse, but the problem is when there are many enemies on screen. The enemies have an amazing level of detail, considering how many are rendered on screen, and you can just cut them in half, but that makes it very difficult to maintain 60 frames per second. The GPU goes to 100%. In my opinion, the settings that you should look for is between 45 and 70 frames per second. It's 70 when there's nothing going on, and it's 45 when there are many enemies on screen and you're attacking them all at once. And compared to the previous entry in the series, this one has more maps and they're more varied. And so far the one that made me get the worst performance is the one I'm showing right now, which is weird because usually the maps that have a lot of foliage on other games are the ones that kill performance. But for me this one was the one that by doing nothing it's already a big hit to the GPU. There's a lot of geometry, and when you have SSAO enabled, for example, all that geometry makes shading in between. So I noticed that this map was very detailed, so maybe that's why you get a huge performance hit compared to other one with a lot of foliage, for example. But it all depends on how many enemies are on screen, how much transparencies are going on. For example, there are some enemies that throw acid at you and that acid just fills the screen and it's a huge performance hit. So it can be quite variable, but yeah guys, that's pretty much it. I hope you keep enjoying the video. Thanks for watching and see you next time.
Gates open and not through choice. Dead. This lot are the lucky ones. Oh, knows what the pack squad did with the survivors. Over here, quickly now. You like that? It's an ammunition stash! There's just what we need. Wish I'd been here. Might have made a difference.
They'll be waiting in the shadows. Then, they'll burn.
Right on! Call them up! Smash them in!
I think they know we're here. I think he's dead, Walker Boots. Let them see.
Poison rat! Find it! Kill it!
Time for fire. They're coming.
Make it blow! It's a thing! No more shots for me!
Definitely felt better.
Your fire is feeding together. Hello, little bomb.
Helping down a
We
person.
did some great things together.
We're too late for this place, much too late. By Tom! Fight! Kill! Death! Ain't that a beautiful shot? I can't shoot without shot.
They're coming for us. The fields.
Gas close coming in. Someone kill that bombardier.
Stop that! It's going to explode!
Bombardier, get shot.
I think he's dead, Lumberfoot. Will fell you. Mitleitrid! Chaos warriors lumbering around.
Bomb, how nice!
Ha! Numbers against skill again.
Do this all day.
Over there, Lumberfoots. Chaos warrior.
There's so many of them.
Why are you hitting armor, Gruber?
Form on me, Dory. Get the Kazaki dome together. Vital! Carve them up! Smash them in! Can you do no better? Comes away!
Seek. Chaos warrior's dead.
You like that? Gates open and not through choice.
Not bad for a Lumberfoot.
These stairs go up. Oh, I wish these poor lads in the garrison had given a better account of themselves.
I want the beast's eyes for Drakira! Ogre flamer! Shoot it! Shoot the furnace! Hold your breath and shield your eyes.
Rat ogre flamer!
Slay that
You're my mates! I'll not abandon you now. Just like that.
Your wings are no match for my fire, sorcerer!
Had a shot. Here's goal.
Seek. They don't learn, do they?
Give a man a moment, will ya? That's a lot of blood, Azungi. Heal up. Here they come.
It's a smooth, lumbering target after all.
And she'll assume me. This is about to get messy.
You're next.
Keep moving. We have to reach that Blightstormer.
One last gasp from the
Yeah, this doesn't look good, does it?
Want to take you? Cross the weaklings.
Just like that. Stairs, just what we need. Dead. Well, this lot are the lucky ones. Oh, knows what the packs will do
Kill
to
that fire
survivors.
rat. I don't want to burst.
Taste my axe.
Gas rat, Ringbarazi! Gas rat, incoming!
Underestimate that warp fight. The furnace! Stairs, meatflies, stairs.
Oh, lads. They deserve better. Flank that storm beast! Bring it down!
Oh, that's definite sleepies. For Lilia.
Onward!
Brought up a wartime places!
With that kill. Ammunition here. Chucking a bomb. Don't get cocky, we ain't done.
A horde of them!
That's right, Kruber. What you training, sure. Strangle a rat.
Dead strangler. You wanna dance?
This doesn't paint a pretty picture. Oh, lads. They deserve better. I think it's this way.
Healing now!
Right on! Carve them up! Smash them in!
That's the Chaos Warrior. A hardier proposition than most.
Help! The eyes! You've got the skill for it. Country!